Good morning. This is Faith in Our Hometown, brought to you as a community service and sponsored by Mercy Hospital, Joplin. And now, here is your host, Father Jay Friedel.
Good morning to all of you out there in the greater Joplin area for another Sunday morning here at Faith in Our Hometown. We're glad you joined us for another Sunday morning as we try to have conversations of people who care about what's going on here in our greater Joplin area, and especially when we have to look at that in some ways through the eyes of faith, okay? So thank you for joining us again. My guest this morning is going to be Greg Spink, who is the Executive Director for Big Brothers Big Sisters here in our area. And Greg's going to talk to us a little bit about why some of our kids in our area might need Big Brothers and Big Sisters, and what people like you and me might be able to do to help them as they kind of grow themselves up and go through life, and some of the hands that we might be able to extend to them. We are going to be maybe calling on you this morning to maybe open up your heart a little bit, see whether or not you might be one of those people who might make a good big brother or big sister. And so we're going to be right back after this Mercy Minute, so stick around and we'll be right back.
Once I quit playing football, I still kept up with the eating, the amount of calories I wasn't exercising, so the weight started adding on. Dr. Lou is very knowledgeable in the work he does. He also has a program set up that has support systems in place for you. You'll go through the seminar at first. He'll give you the different examples of surgeries you can have to see which one works best with you. He will also sit down with you and discuss the options, what he feels, but he'll work with you the entire time. Mercy has their gastric bypass program here. They have all kinds of resources and support systems in place. They want to see you succeed, and they're here to help you the entire time, even after the surgery.
Well, thanks for sticking with us this morning. Again, my guest this morning is going to be Greg Spink, who's the Executive Director for Big Brothers and Big Sisters here in our area. So Greg, tell us a little bit about yourself, and then tell us a little bit about Big Brothers Big Sisters.
Well, I am the Executive Director at Big Brothers Big Sisters, like you say. I've been in the Joplin area for 8 or 9 years now.
Great.
Started out with Big Brothers. My first involvement with Big Brothers and Big Sisters was when I was in college. I became a Big and had a little brother in college, and to this day, we are still connected. So we've been connected for over 30 years as big and little. And I'm also a part-time pastor. I ended up doing his wedding when he got married. And so we've stayed connected through all these years.
That's great.
Have been friends all along. And so I love Big Brothers Big Sisters. I have 2 daughters who are in college right now, one in Abilene, Texas, and one in Waco, Texas. And they're both Bigs in Big Brothers and Big Sisters.
Good.
So,
well, kind of like a family tradition.
Yes, we love Big Brothers Big Sisters.
Good. So you've been here for about 9 years. Where are you from originally?
Well, I lived my first 5 years in Texas. I was born in Oklahoma. Don't tell people that. And then I moved to Texas, and so I consider myself.
That's part of our.
Well, I consider myself a Texan. So
okay.
I got there as quick as I could, and lived my first 5 years there. Then back to Oklahoma most of my life growing up. But I've been a pastor in Oklahoma, Arkansas, Kansas, Texas, and 1 year, 6 hours, and 23 minutes in Georgia.
Well, there you go. Well, then we won't talk about Georgia.
Right.
All right. But where do you do that around here? Where do you pastor around here?
We're doing a small church plant called The Way Church. We meet at 1609 South Main Street, right there in a little strip mall area, reaching people with the good news of Jesus who might not ever get to know him.
There you go. Well, good. I mean, I guess I'll plug that too while you're here. Why not?
That's perfect. Thank you.
Exactly. No problem. I'm an equal opportunity. Y'all come on this show. Okay.
Thank you.
So that's a good thing. So tell us a little bit about Big Brothers and Big Sisters. Why is this an organization that not just you now for 30 years, but why your kids now and everybody that you can convince to be a big brother or a big sister? Why? Why is this so important?
Now that I'm on staff at Big Brothers and Big Sisters, that just started in January, so I haven't been on staff very long with Big Brothers and Big Sisters, but what I love about Big Brothers and Big Sisters is we are the gold standard of mentoring. And what I mean by that is we take kids who are in crisis and we bring them into a program, we call them the Littles, and then we find adult volunteers, we call them Bigs. So the Bigs go through an extensive screening process. Obviously, safety is a huge concern for us.
Obviously.
We want to make sure kids are safe. But then we have case managers. We have Hazel Long as our case manager right now. We're in the process of looking to hire another case manager, but she's amazing. So every match that we make in the first year of that match, Once a month, the big will get a phone call from the case manager saying, hey, how did it go? Are you meeting your goals? Are you getting your objectives accomplished? She'll call the little, ask the little, do you feel safe? How do you feel like the relationship's going? Do you feel like your things are progressing? And they'll call the parents or guardians of the little and do the same thing with them. And so what we do is we set goals for those relationships, and then they get to spend the year and on trying to accomplish and achieve those goals in the little's life. And so it is, but because there's accountability, because we measure what matters, and what matters gets measured, it's this incredible program where lives are radically transformed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So who become the candidates to be the littles? Tell us a little bit about that. So how does somebody get in a situation where they need a big brother or a big sister?
There's lots of things that can put you in that situation. A lot of times a spouse will lose their significant other. So a husband will lose his wife, and now he's got 2 daughters, and he doesn't know how to teach them how to be women. And so he makes application to Big Brothers and Big Sisters, and we find a couple of big sisters for his daughters that teach his daughters how to become women. A mom might have lost her husband, and so she needs someone to help her son connect, and so she applies. And so sometimes it's through life things that happen that are beyond your control, sometimes things in your control that you didn't control very well, a divorce, something like that. And sometimes there's 2 parents, but they're just overwhelmed or they don't know how to do this, and so they need a helping hand. We love to come alongside and help. One of our big contacts is the court systems, and so we're working with the court system in the sense that if a parent gets incarcerated, parents are given our information so that they can connect with Big Brothers Big Sisters. They can find someone to help their kid. The other place that we're working is with Liz Ballard in the juvenile system, and they're making referrals to kids. So kids can, instead of going and being incarcerated or being in juvie, can instead connect with someone who can help them start to learn to make right decisions. And so we do that. And then we do a site-based program. So we have 2 different kinds of programs, community and site. And right now, the only site-based program we're working with is Joplin Public Schools. But our intention is to add Carthage in 2018/19, and then hopefully add Carl.
That school year, right?
Yeah, that school year. And then hopefully add Carl Junction and Carthage thereafter. And then eventually, we're also Jasper Newton County. So eventually, we need to be into Neosho and Diamond. But that seems overwhelming right now.
Well, when you have to build it a step at a time, there's only one way to get all the way to the other end, and that is by just through it.
And
you just kind of got to go right through it and do it.
And we're taking some big steps, and so it's been exciting. It's been an exciting year.
Yeah. Well, so how many different volunteers do you have right now in the Joplin area, greater Joplin area?
The Joplin area, we have about 198 volunteers right now that are bigs. And then we have a board that's comprised of volunteers who come in, and we meet monthly and kind of help hold everything accountable. We measure our measurables, and they make sure that I'm doing my job right, so that I make sure that the program stays on course. And so we have a phenomenal board that helps raise funds, that does all these things. One of the coolest things about Big Brothers and Big Sisters is no one in the program pays a fee. So the littles aren't charged anything, the bigs don't have to pay anything, and the parents don't have to pay anything. We are completely funded by donors who see a good program and say, I want to be a part of that, I want to come alongside that and help fund that.
Yeah, and obviously it's not cheap to do all that because, again, of the supervision and the oversight, the protection, making sure that the kids are safe. I mean, it's all that stuff, requires, it's like even in our own programs, we have to do background checks and do all those things. And, and again, it's just the price of, when you're responsible for kids, it's the price of what you have to do. I mean, you just have to do it, and it's not cheap to do it, but we are all committed to doing it because
Absolutely.
We don't want anybody hurt if we can avoid it.
Absolutely.
We don't want anybody hurt if we can avoid it. So how would somebody get involved with your organization if they wanted to be? Well, let's start with the little. So say somebody had a kid that they thought would benefit from mentoring. How would they go about contacting you all? What would they do?
There are lots of different ways they can do that. Through the school system, they can talk to their school counselor. Their school counselor can help them get connected. Mm-hmm. What we really like to happen is we like the parents to be involved. We want the mom and dad, or mom or dad, or the guardian sometimes. Sometimes they're in foster care, sometimes, and that's why they need help. But ideally, we'd like them to reach out and say, hey, I want this kid to have a mentor. I want this kid to have a big brother, or this kid to have a big sister. They can do that online at www.joplinbigbro.org.
Okay, say that one more time, nice and slow.
www.joplinbigbro.org.
joplinbigbro.org. Okay,
Yes.
all right.
And then they could call the office Our number there is 417-626-9244.
One more time.
It's 417-626-9244. You'll get answered by our virtual receptionist and extension 1001.
I've talked to that woman.
Yeah, well, she's a sweetheart.
Yes.
She is super good, and we don't pay her, but hardly anything. But yeah, but if you get extension 1001, that'll be Hazel, our case manager, and she is our intake person. So she would get a new family involved. She would bring them in for the interview process and get to know them and get to know the common interest and likes. That's one of the cool things that we do is we don't just match kids up. We don't have you on a waiting list and this kid on a waiting list. We think, okay, well, let's put them together.
Right.
We fill out all these interest sheets, and so we take commonalities and things that we think will make matches that will last a lifetime. That's what we want to do.
Sure. And obviously you've got this 30-year relationship with, with this kid that you did this 4 years ago, which I think is wonderful.
And what's funny is I had no idea they did all that. I didn't know why I was answering those questions. I just answered the questions they asked me, but I had no idea they were going to create this relationship.
Or they were screening you. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the other thing is, everybody's just like, okay, why are they asking me all these questions? Well, it's because, we do care about who we expose to our, anybody who's vulnerable. We got to be careful about that stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So.
And we want our bigs to succeed too. That's the other thing that we don't talk about a whole lot is we're not just changing the lives of kids. We're changing the lives of volunteers.
Well, you're getting into something that I've noticed and known for many, many years. Obviously, working at one of my gigs is that I've done campus ministry for over 25 years, and so because of that, I've worked with Greek letter organizations. I've worked with my own Catholic student organizations, and many of those folks are looking for opportunities to grow themselves. And so one of the best ways we can always do that is to send some of those folks out into the community and say, hey, if you've got this propensity, or you think you'd like to work with kids, or you think you've got what would make you a good mentor, here, go contact Big Brothers and Big Sisters. I first worked with the Greek community over at Southeast Missouri State University, and I know that one of the people that was even over this area for a long time was one of those people that was in college when I was over there, and now she's working for your organization because she was good at it. And she just went up through the ranks, and and now she's executive directing herself. And she's a good lady, and I just loved her to death when she was in college, and she's still doing it because she found her niche, and she's good at it. And again, did she learn how to succeed? Sure, she did. And not only has she done that for herself and for all the people that she's the little kids that she's mentored, now she's mentoring the mentors, which I think is a wonderful place to be, watching some of that happen. So that's a good thing. So that would be one of the things that we do there. So then how would the bigs call and offer their services?
The bigs can go online the same way, joplinbigbro.org, or they can call the office, or they can stop by. Right now we're opposite in United Way. We're in the basement of United Way at 3510 East 3rd Street. So we're kind of behind the mall, little street up there by Starbucks, behind, across the street from the Assisted Living Center. You can find our offices there, and we would love to visit with you. One of the places I'd like to, really what we need to do is we need to recruit some bigs. I have this, most agencies in the country have waiting lists of littles, and some kids wait up to a year or more to get matched. And so the hard thing every Big Brother, Big Sister agency has to deal with is getting bigs. And so I have a plan to get bigs, and I want to talk to you about that.
Okay, well, let's talk about it right even after the break, okay? My guest this morning is Greg Spink. He's the Executive Director for Big Brothers and Big Sisters, and we're talking about his organization and what we might be able to do to help in that regard. So we're going to take a real short break here. Don't go away. Might fill your coffee cup or do whatever else you need to do, but stick around and come back for the second half of Faith in Our Hometown. Stick around.
You're watching Faith in Our Hometown on KSN TV, brought to you as a community service and sponsored by Mercy Hospital, Joplin.
Thanks for sticking with us again this morning. Again, Greg Spink, Executive Director of Big Brothers and Big Sisters. And right before the break, you were talking about how you're going to lure somebody like me to help you to find some bigs.
Well, I have this friend, and his name is Jesus, and here's what he said. He said, here's what judgment's going to look like. Oh, do you? I do too. He's a great guy, isn't he? He's going to separate the sheep and the goats, and he's going to say to the sheep, I was hungry and you fed me. I was naked and you clothed me. I was thirsty and you gave me drink. I was a stranger, you invited me in. I was sick and in prison, you came to see me.
You're going to add some more to that now, aren't you?
Well, that's it. But what Jesus basically said was judgment isn't what you know or where you worship or the name on the building. Judgment's going to look like, what did you do with the talents and the gifts I gave you? And so Jesus was big about taking care of the least of these.
Right.
And so here are some people in our community who are the least of these, and I think there are a lot of people who are looking in churches who are saying, how do I practice they go to your church and they sit in your and they hear you speak and they think, I want to do what he's talking. How do I do that? How do I connect those dots? And how do I, where's my niche? Where's my role? Where do I take care of widows and orphans and those who are in need?
Well, and that's what's incumbent upon all of us who are in leadership positions in a community to say, to folks from time to time. It's just like, okay, what are you giving back? What are you giving back to God? What are you giving back to the community? What are you giving back to your church community? What are you giving back to the larger community? And I think that it's incumbent upon us as pastors, if you will, to continue to stir the pot for our people to say, here's something that you might be able to do. Sometimes people don't even conceive of the fact, and that's why I love working in higher ed. I just think it's a great gig, because in higher ed, students are basically presenting themselves to you saying, hey, help me figure this out. Help me how to improve my life. Help me how to figure out where I'm going next. And so I love, I don't get to spend as much time at Missouri Southern as I'd like, but I love the time that I do get to spend out there, because the fun part is that students are saying, hey, I'm looking to figure out where some of these pieces are missing in my life. Can you help me figure it out? And of course, then we start asking questions, and we start doing, the screening process that says, well, what are you interested in and what do you want to do? And if if it's older people, fine, I can send them out and take care of some of our seniors. If it's younger people, and then they, like for example, I love the ones that are away from home and missing their little brothers and little sisters, and I'll start finding, well, what do you miss about that? And I just love being there for them and helping them grow up. Okay, then they're going to be a prime candidate for somebody like you.
Yes, they are.
Yes.
And I think that, people who go on short-term mission trips, and I'm assuming you've probably led teams on short-term mission trips. I've led teams on short-term mission trips. They go to change lives, and their life is the one who's changed. Now, they change lives while they're there, too. And you'll find the same thing in Big Brothers and Big Sisters. People will volunteer because they want to make a difference in somebody's life. And the cool thing is, they'll look back like me 30 years later and think, man, the one who was changed was me.
Exactly.
I'm the one who was changed. And that's what I love about Big Brothers, is we have this opportunity not just to change the life of a kid, we got an opportunity to change the life of a big. But I also know this, when the kid's life is changed, mom and dad's life has changed.
Everybody's life, the whole community's changed, the whole world's changed, because again, when people are living up to their full potential, things change. They're different in the world.
We just make Joplin a better place to live.
Amen, brother.
And raise up better citizens to live in our community.
Exactly. And and that's a win-win situation.
Oh, absolutely.
It's a win-win situation.
Absolutely.
In terms of those kinds of things, I always believe that real relationships just almost mean, by definition, that there's going to be change on the part of both the people that are involved in that relationship.
Absolutely.
It happens that way.
Yes.
And it happens for good. I'm reminded of that great song, at the end of Wicked, because I knew you, I've been changed for good.
Yep.
And of course it's a wonderful play on words, but basically saying you can't be in a relationship with somebody and have your life stay the same. And that to me has always been a wonderful thing. It's been the mystery of, in the heart of relationships,
Yep.
Yeah, which is great. So we know how we can get littles involved. We know how to get bigs involved. You've told me how many bigs you got involved here. Do we have a large waiting list for kids right now?
We have a waiting list, and it's going to grow, and especially as we start to add other schools.
Right.
So we're going to need more volunteers. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention that we're also going to need more funding. Again,
okay.
Can we talk about that for a little bit?
Yep. You can ask them for whatever you want, and if that's what they want to respond to, then go it. So do your best job here, buddy.
Here's what we know. We know, according to Big Brothers and Sisters National, that it costs between $800 and $1,200 a match to fund for a year.
I warned you that it wasn't cheap. I did say that earlier.
You did
it
say
wasn't
that.
cheap.
And
Yeah.
the good news is we're one of the cheaper places
Sure.
to live. And so our expenses aren't going to be quite, aren't going to be as much as California or those kinds of places. And so, but there is an expense involved. And we are coming up on Bowl for Kids' Sake the first Saturday in March. And Bowl
Okay.
for Kids' Sake is an incredible time. And another thing I'd like churches to be involved in, what if we could get churches and youth groups to bowl against each other? So we come up with teams of 5 people, and each person pays $50. So we raise $250 per team. You're certainly allowed to raise more than $50 if you would like. But you get your team together, and you get a team you bowl against, and you show up at the bowling alley, and we bowl. And so we have 3 flights. Last year, in March, we had our first flight took 18 lanes up. We had 18 lanes that were full. The next flight took 26 lanes, and the last flight took 8 lanes. And so I'd like to have 3 flights that are full, that have people who are coming out and connecting with each other and being involved in our community and helping raise funds and generate awareness. And it's just a flat out good time. I mean, there's
Sure.
pizza involved, there's bowling involved, there's rented shoes involved. I mean, what's more fun than that?
Well, the rented shoes were never a big hit for me, but it's okay.
But they do make a
nonetheless,
fashion statement.
They do make a fashion statement.
Yes.
I agree with that. So this is coming up in March.
Yes.
Okay, so if any of our church families out there, any individuals would want to put together a team, they can. And again, they would get in touch with
And you can register online at joplinbigbro.org/events.
joplinbigbro.org.
And then if you
look
go to
for
the
the
events
events
tab.
part, the
Yep.
events tab.
And there'll be a place to register there
Okay.
for the Bowl for Kids' Sake. If you're not interested in bowling, but you want to help participate in this, we have different levels of sponsorship. Ideally, we would like to find people who would say, hey, I'll take 1 match and sponsor that for a year.
Sure.
And so if we get individuals that would take $800 and just divide it by 12 and say, hey, every month I want to make this donation, or at the end of the year I'm going to write a check for $800 to fund this, or however they choose to do that, that'd be fantastic. We are, like I say, have about 198 matches now, and when we add Carthage and the kids in the community that continue to come, and the kids to the court system that continue to come, we look at being at 300 matches, but very, very soon.
Yeah,
and
that's like
we don't have a way to
that's like
fund
a
that.
50% increase.
Yes. So
Yeah.
we started with 7 kids in January of last year.
So January of
And
2017.
so in January of 2017 to January of 2018, we went from 7 kids to 198 kids.
All right.
Now, I'm telling God, please don't let it grow that fast again. That's a bit overwhelming.
Hey,
but
all I'm going to tell you is what I always tell my folks. If you really want to hear God laugh, tell them what you've got planned, and we'll see what happens.
well, and that's what
So,
we did. We
yeah.
hoped to grow 50 kids in that year, and so financially we kind of got this place where we thought, we had enough money set aside for a year and a half of funding, and now we're finding out that we don't have that because of the growth.
There you go. And if again, this is it's a worthwhile organization, rated very highly by folks who watch charitable organizations and charitable giving. You guys have got a great reputation.
Yes, we do.
And I mean nationally. And so far, I've only heard good things about what happened here in Joplin. So you just make sure you keep that up, Buster.
I will do that.
Okay. All right. So again, so if anybody would just like to make donations, they can do that through your website,
Yes,
or
sir.
they can give you a call and to do those things. And of course, and certainly in terms of looking for more big brothers and big sisters themselves, more bigs, because in that regard, we've got these little kids that we don't want them on a waiting list forever.
That's
we
right.
want to make sure that they get hooked up with somebody who can help them to get on with the business of living life and growing up.
And maybe you don't want to maybe you want to volunteer, but you're not sure that you'd be good with a kid. Man, we've got other volunteer opportunities. We need people who can make phone calls during the week, that could come in 1 day a week and make some phone calls, or come in a couple hours a day and work the reception desk, or those kinds of things. We have some different areas that people could be involved. The Bowl for Kids' Sake, man, we could use about 15 to 20 volunteers for that. We could use volunteers for our Christmas party that we have every year in December. And so, man, if you're looking you just want to be involved, but you don't know how to be involved, we can find a place to plug you in. If you have a heart to help people, we can get you plugged in.
Good. And again, those are the kinds of organizations that I think are good at bringing in volunteers. So again, I told you at the beginning of the show that if we were gonna ask you to maybe open up your heart and see whether or not this might be a spot for you. So if somebody's tapping you on the shoulder this morning, the good Lord, or whatever and however it is that you interpret that little push from wherever, listen to that. You know, whether it's your conscience, whether it's God, whether it's, you know, that little silent, still voice on the inside, just listen away and see whether or not maybe the Lord's asking you to volunteer to make the difference in the life of some little kid.
And you'll win as much as the kid will win. That's the best part of it. It's a win-win.
Yeah. So 30 years ago. So tell me about your little. I mean, we got a couple minutes here. So tell me about your friend from 30 years.
I was in college, and a kid's dad had left him, and his mom signed him up into Big Brothers. I didn't know any of this initially. You know, I just went and signed up, and all of a sudden we get matched because I love football and he's a football player. And so I ended up coaching his Pee Wee football team through a series of events.
Okay.
And so I got to really know his whole team. And then when football season's over, we rolled right into basketball, and I coached his basketball team because we had so much turnover in football. And then I coached his baseball team. And so the cool thing was, then I got to be a dad one day, and I had 3 kids of my own. And I coached their sports, and I learned how to coach their sports. Ronnie was the one I cut my teeth on, my little and Big Brothers and Big Sisters. And then when I had my kids, Courtney, Stacy, and Austin, I was already groomed and ready to go.
You know, you are a great guest. You managed to get your kids in. You've managed to get your friends in.
I married my best friend, my wife, Kim.
There you go.
She's
there
awesome.
You go. Now you've mentioned them all. This is great. All right, so my guest this morning has been Greg Spink. He's the executive director for Big Brothers and Big Sisters, also pastor of The Way.
The Way Church.
Part-time pastor of The Way Church on Main Street. So he is looking this morning, especially for volunteers for Big Brothers and Big Sisters. So we're going to be right back after this Mercy Minute. Don't go away. And while we're on the break and you're filling up your coffee cup or doing whatever, you might just think a little bit whether or not maybe you're getting tapped on the shoulder to be a volunteer, maybe to make a little bit of a difference in the life of someone who needs a little bit of mentoring. But we're going to be right back. Don't go away.
The SANE program, or Sexual Assault Nurse Examiner program, is a program established to provide a coordinated, specialized care to patients or women or men who've been the victim of sexual assault.
The SANE program is really designed to be a collaborative community response to sexual assault.
It's really important to make sure that it's not just the report or the forensic, but they get all of the testing that might be needed for their health.
It's also important to know that you don't need to know if you want to press charges or not. We don't get law enforcement involved unless you request it.
I just want to express to the victim that it is never your fault. You always have the right to say no, and that it's your body. So if you say yes one time, it doesn't mean every time.
I think it's important that sexual assault victims remember they've been victims of a crime, and crime victims do not pay for those services.
Some mornings we'll discuss a topic. Other mornings we kind of reach out there and try to see whether we can touch some hearts. I hope your heart was touched this morning. Hear about some of the stories about how to connect maybe some of the younger members of our community with some of the older, more experienced members of our community who need just a little mentoring in life. And that happens many times through having a big brother or a big sister. Fortunately, we have an organization here in the area that provides just that kind of coaching to help people to become good mentors, and matches those up with some of our younger members of the community who need good mentors. That's Big Brothers and Big Sisters. You've been asked this morning to see whether or not you want to volunteer. You've been told how you might be able to connect in that regard. You've been told perhaps that if you don't have time to volunteer, but that you just maybe want to make a donation, you can do that. All those things are important. We hope that you will stay involved in this large and great and wonderful Joplin community of ours. Join us next week again for Faith in Our Hometown. God bless.
Thanks for watching. Faith in Our Hometown can be seen Sunday mornings at 6:30 and 9 a.m. on KSN. Brought to you as a community service and sponsored by Mercy Hospital, Joplin.